believe we should be good? Yeah? Okay.
I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Mike Limcaco from Agilisiums. Mike's a senior technology advisor at Agilisiums, and he's passionate about advanced analytics, including streaming analytics, machine learning, AI, and brings 25 years of large-scale system design, development, and operations experience. Mike previously was the technology leader at Amazon Web Services Solutions Architecture team here in Los Angeles. He also worked as a management consultant at various firms, Ernst & Young and Deloitte Consulting. Mike's experience includes providing large-scale system design and advanced analytics experience for the defense intelligence community. Mike's also been featured as a speaker at Amazon, Gartner, and UCLA Anderson School Management events. He will be presenting a talk entitled BI Conversational Bot, the high-speed bridge between data and decision. Please join me in welcoming Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate you taking your Saturday to take a couple minutes out of your Saturday to join us and hear about some ideas that we have from the field. Again, I'm with a firm here in LA called Agilisium Consulting, and we focus in on providing innovative, integrated capabilities for our clients ranging from private and public sector. It's okay, it's by design. I don't want folks paying attention up there yet. But we do provide a number of interesting, innovative applications where we focus on thinking about how to take cloud-enabled data analytics solutions for clients' problems with clients in the media and entertainment, high-tech engineering, manufacturing, biotech, pharma. We have a pretty good exposure to customers and their problems and use cases, and so we have a lot of fun building new solutions using off-the-shelf, open source, and cloud-based capabilities to address those use cases. And today I wanted to just spend a few minutes sharing our experience in building some of those unique tools that really bring value to our customers. I'm going to start off with a little bit of a nerdy flashback. I'm going to date myself, and I love movies, and I'm going to see if this works from an audio standpoint, because we're having a little bit of challenge with audio. But let's go back in time. All right, well, let's see. Audio is not quite working. For those of you who might remember that, that's a scene from War Games, where we have this incredibly advanced technology from 1983, a mainframe that can play chess. And the kind of user experience that was presented in that film is where you have this very mechanical system that's speaking with its creator, asking if he'd like to play a game of chess. And I don't know if any of you remember that movie, but it's a pretty famous meme. Go check it out. You'll get a laugh. We've come a long, long way from those days. And what we're seeing in terms of conversational interfaces, thanks to advances in machine learning, neural networks, lots of data for training, lots of innovation coming from folks like Facebook and Amazon and Google and Microsoft. We're seeing really wonderful user experiences in the form of Cortana and Alexa and Google Assistant, and of course Siri. And I'm I'm going to ask if I could have some help on the AV side. Seem to be having some trouble here again. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, try that again. All right, let's do that. Let's do that one more time. All right, so let's get that down to brass tacks. Let's talk about these wonderful ways that we can take the kind of consumer experience we're comfortable with Alexa and Siri and others, and apply it to the business domain, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. A lot of our customers hadn't really thought of connecting their consumer experience with their mission critical or enterprise or regulated data set type of experience. Combining those two is exactly what we're talking about today. Providing a natural way to be able to interrogate the data lake, your petabyte warehouse. There's very interesting ways that we can surface that data and allow users to inspect the cube, to do slice and dice, to do aggregates without having to go spin up their laptop, get on VPN, hop onto the corporate network, bring up application XYZ, let's say it's the corporate version of Tableau, log in and do all the things necessary to get a question answered. First off, of course, we recognize that bots are important. They're ubiquitous capabilities and technologies. We love our chatbots. We love our digital assistant experiences. It's amazing to know that with Amazon Echo and Google Home, that in the US, there's an installation base of over 50 million endpoints. That's a huge reach. So it's becoming a part of our daily experience, whether it's on Facebook Messenger or in our car. Chatbot experiences or conversational interfaces by extension, they're becoming very, very common. And from a business standpoint, we're now just starting to see the adoption of these capabilities into the business space. PwC cites the fact that 31% of business execs believe that a virtual personal assistant will have the largest potential impact on their business. And pardon me, I'm going to try putting this mic down. So again, we feel that bringing these experiences into the business environment is extremely important. There's a lot of potential. A lot of our customers ask us about it because they're now starting to realize that concepts like machine learning and predictive models and descriptive analytics and KPIs and data warehouses, it's all very nebulous until you can present the end user, the business analyst or the CFO or the CIO or the CTO, provide them with decision aids that reach deep into the system of record or into the data lake and make it extremely easy to ask questions and to pivot and to slice and dice. So bots are more than just playful things that are more than just consumer grade experiences. The Gordon Ramsay commercial with the Amazon commercial, how do I make a grilled cheese sandwich? I love that one. But bots can be also impactful and meaningful on the business side. Not that a grilled cheese sandwich recipe isn't important, but in the business space, we often get asked about what are the challenges and what are the unique aspects of bringing bot technology to business. And we hear this a lot from customers, and customers don't really believe that the two worlds can marry up. Because in the business world, it's important to be able to provide a conversational or natural experience to the business analyst to help them make better, faster, more effective, hyper-precise decisions. They want naturally flowing responses from the data lake or the data warehouse or the machine learning model. Google's Dialogflow platform requires that you have to have a 5-second, sub 5-second response time, or they'll cut off the conversational flow. And that makes a lot of sense, because how natural is it to be conversing with someone or a proxy and have to wait 10 to 12 to 20 seconds? Forget about it. That's not going to happen. So a fast, natural experience is critical. Being able to tailor the bot to use business terminology, the ability to train an assistant to use the local language or to use the local dialect or to use business terminology. We also want to make sure that this bot strategy can provide uniform access without a user having to hop between different analytic endpoints. The fact that I'm first tapping into my data warehouse and then reaching back for 20 years worth of data into an S3 backed object store running Presto, that's noise to an end user. If a bot can actually transition that user experience seamlessly between these different sources, then we've won. But here's a unique challenge. Securing the data is extremely important. Obviously, if you're providing simple access on my mobile phone, if an executive is out and about at a conference and is able to whip out their phone and ask how we did over the weekend, how did sales look over the weekend, that's secure access to some very critical mission data. So we have to be very mindful of the security controls, the tools and techniques to control access to that endpoint, because you are effectively exposing the endpoint to the enterprise way at the edge. But ultimately, at the end of the day, our customers have shared their vision with us, which is analytics anywhere. Literally, we have one customer who talks about executives getting up in the morning and getting ready to go to work. First thing they do is they're boiling or cooking up their morning joe, is they want to ask the show device or the spot device on their desk or on their kitchen counter. They want to see how things have happened, how things progressed overnight. How did sales go? Was the video launch campaign or the media marketing campaign successful? What's trending social sentiment like? And then taking that analytics and then getting in the car and transferring it over to the phone seamlessly as the virtual agent kind of follows them in the car. And as they're in the car, they're asking the analytics back end what else is going on, and asking them to book a meeting with the digital marketing team because I want to talk about this. And then getting to work, going into a conference room, there's an Apple TV display, you're connected to Zoom conferencing, and the bot shows up and says, I've got those latest updates for you, here you go. So that's the kind of experience that our customers are building towards or forward, pulling all these sources together and providing a unified analytics anywhere experience. The good news is there's lots of building blocks out there. There's lots of capability, there's lots of technology, whether it's up on GitHub, open source capabilities, where we have some components out there for you to look at, but also commercial off the shelf. Of course, many of us are familiar with, let's say, Alexa. Some of that power behind Alexa is out there available as a ready-to-use service in the form of Amazon Lex or AWS Lex. So the barrier to building these solutions is very low. It's relatively straightforward to find onesie twosie solutions to address different parts of the problem, whether it's discovery that you're interested in. Maybe you are wanting to build a bot that can build a better or provide a better grilled cheese making experience. There are bots that are designed for different capabilities, and there are generic kits. But one thing that we did not, in our research over the last 2 years, one thing that we didn't have full exposure to or full visibility into in terms of the industry adoption was bots and bot infrastructure dedicated mostly or exclusively or primarily on delivering advanced analytics or analytics. So we're at a big data conference. Many of you are familiar with virtualized SQL MPP warehouses like Snowflake or Redshift or BigQuery or Hadoop and Hive. We're all very familiar with crunching data and presenting KPIs and results to our customers. But how often do we think about presenting that using some of these commercial front-facing consumer experiences? And that's what we focused in on over the last year and a half, 2 years, which is to create this platform which really delivers analytics anywhere. It's just a phrase we're using for a kit that we're actually making available to our clients. I'm going to share some of the secret sauce with you, but not all of it, but happy to talk with many of you offline. But as a fellow technologist, I'm happy to share some of these ideas and the response that we're getting back from our customers. Analytics Anywhere in the form of this kit that we've integrated called BI Bot is a specialized bot experience that brings together off-the-shelf components and tailors it to the business enterprise analytics space. And that is converting business intelligence operations like slicing and dicing KPI metrics off a cube on the back end or off of a materialized view off of a data warehouse, pulling all that data forward and making it available through a natural language question and answer experience. We also recognize that our clients don't always want to be able to talk to these bots. They want to ask the question. We had one client who sits in executive meeting rooms or business meetings all day long with investors, and as the investors are interrogating this poor chap, he is literally wanting to whip out his phone and discreetly ask his assistant back 3,000 miles away, how are we doing? What were sales like? What are sales like now? And the response comes back, and he's discreetly able to come off like a wizard. He can go back to the investors and say, yes, well, absolutely. We know that our single source of truth tells us X, Y, Z. So we have to be able to provide natural language interfaces into the data warehouse or data lake, and we also want to be able to provide textual-based experiences. We also have customers who provide global operational support to different client regions, and so multi-language support is important, not just English. We wanted to be able to tailor and allow these bots to have unique personalities. Pick your gender, pick your persona, pick your dialect, pick your accent. And we also need to be able to support sub or single-digit second response times. When you're going back and hitting the data lake or the data warehouse or hitting predictive models, in this context, it's extremely important to keep that responsiveness. Or as in the case of Dialogflow, you get cut off at 5 seconds. So we had to implement some special strategies to be able to overcome that challenge. Another very important thing to consider is that business intelligence users, executives, want to see something. They don't just want to hear about how we're doing in terms of sales. They often like to see very coarse but very, very easy to understand visuals. And a lot of these bot experiences are really good at providing you the ability to integrate cards, graphical cards, like how do I get from here to the grocery? And a little ping or a JPEG map will pop up. So the technical challenge is to take BI responsive results, JSON or SQL results or other, and then rendering that in real time and trying to meet that 2, 3 second, 4 second response time, and then generating the ping and giving it to the framework or the device type. And finally, let's not forget security, job number 1. Being able to integrate this into a client enterprise directory environment, single sign-on, federated identity, those are all important. And ultimately, over time, our clients are asking for a more responsive and adaptive personal experience. A bot that will anticipate in the morning, I'm going to ask for those reports on how we did on banana sales in Ecuador. So the system is ready to go. It's actually even potentially cached the results on Redshift cache, and is prepared to answer that question. So why don't we go ahead and show some examples of what this looks like. And this will be a little bit of an experiment again with the microphone, so please bear with me.
Hello, how may I help you today?
Who are you?
I'm your analytics digital assistant. I can answer questions you may have from our team's data lake covering ad sales, revenue, and forecasts. I'm here to help.
Okay, tell me, what's our overall revenue?
The overall advertisement revenue of our portfolio for 2018
So that last bit, I just really wanted to call out again that there are different form factors for the user experience. Whether it's a mobile device, a smart TV, literally these are real use cases. Customers have executive conference rooms and they want to have these smart TVs with Apple TV parked in their conference room, all the way to mobile devices to show and spot display desktops on their desktops. So we have to be able to support multiple form factors, but we also have to be able to support multiple experiences like languages. Here's one more example.
Hi, Analytics Agent のテストバージョンです。こんにちは。The overall advertisement revenue of our portfolio for 2018 is $2.60 million.
So that brief exchange was demonstrating that the same single source of truth can be rendered differently on a different device and using a different language. The question was the same: what is the overall revenue for fiscal year 2018? And the response that came back from the same source of truth, which was essentially a Redshift backed by S3 response, was rendered appropriately on the right device in the right language and the right form factor. Okay. So how did we build this? So our reference architecture for this really ties together some of the usual suspects, but it was tying them together in a way that was very meaningful for the problem we were trying to solve. On the front end, we accept a variety of inputs from a variety of different device types: web, mobile, smart device like Alexa, Echo, and Spot, and Display, and Show. And on the Google side of the house, Google Assistant-enabled device types. Taking those as inputs, using the power of those device types and their frameworks, for example, Google Dialogflow and Amazon Lex and Amazon Skills Kit, to take natural language and then to convert that into what are called intents. Intents are essentially slots that map to business functionality. Think of like stored procedures or entry points into a service stack. I might have 20 ways to ask one question, which is what is the overall revenue? 20 different ways to ask it. I could even ask it like Yoda. I could say revenue, what is? Revenue, what is? Or I could ask it like a normal person and say what is the overall revenue for fiscal year 2018. But the system, natural language understanding, natural language interfaces, all these wonderful technologies being provided by these big boys and girls, is used to normalize those questions into a shared slot. The slot is a handler, it's a function. We create the slots on the back end, we map those to SQL or SQL-based operations. And by the way, the training process to educate the bot into understanding these different questions and types, it's actually kind of fun to work with these kits, and I'll talk about that in a second. But once you train the system is able to dispatch and go from voice, audio, or keyboard input, map it to one of n number of fixed slots, and then those slots are the business logic handlers. And in our case, our business logic is hosted in a serverless back-end container-based system, AWS Lambda. It's essentially, it goes beyond, in my mind, things like Docker, because really we just deploy the code. The code that receives the response or the request takes the parameters, the fiscal year, the geo region, maybe the product type, and some user context, and it breaks it down into a SQL, into a back-end experience. The back-end experience is typically, in our case, is a Redshift with caching-enabled front end for fast delivery of aggregates, backed by an S3 object store. So that means we could have vast amounts of raw data going back many, many, many years in cold storage and have that served up through SQL. And Redshift, AWS Redshift, which is a scale-out MPP data warehousing technology, can serve that data up using traditional SQL, and there's some optimization that we take advantage of, for example, caching. So setting up tables and views and allowing those results, common results that get queried upon consistently, those get cached in memory at the cluster, and then they get presented back to the client. But before we present it back to the client, we have to typically render that in a graphical form. And how do you render graphical or visuals? How do you render charts in a very fast and responsive way and in a serverless container environment? We've actually cracked that nut, and we've deployed some code out on GitHub for you to check out. One final piece we want to call out is we actually are backing this with and continuing to extend the machine learning aspect to this. Besides the machine learning features that are available on the front end, which are a part of the natural features of Dialogflow and Amazon Lex, taking all of that user engagement, the Q&A and the missed questions, if you ask a question and it doesn't fit in any one of those 20 slots, it goes into a default bit bucket. We use that as an opportunity to understand what we're missing, what customers are asking us for, where we need to improve, and build out the next Scrum cycle for building out new features. So machine learning is an important back-end forensics capability for us to understand what folks are asking for and to build predictive models to understand how best to position content and responses moving forward. So just a quick visual on some of those capabilities. From a training and natural language understanding perspective, we did survey a number of technologies and off-the-shelf products out there. And at the end of the day, it was really simple for us. Dialogflow and Amazon Skills Kit or Lex tended to have the greatest potential or the most effective experience. They were really good, especially Dialogflow was really good at capturing the nuances, whether you're speaking Yoda or with a thick dialect, or perhaps maybe you're obscured by natural background noise. Dialogflow seemed to have some very good accuracy in terms of mapping those to the back-end slots. Alexa, of course, does too. So we actually use both in a complementary way. We actually train our bot to understand questions based on the user device type or experience that we're promoting. So we may use Dialogflow in one case, for example, in an Android-centric system where you have Google Assistant, and we'll use, of course, Alexa Skills Kit for the rest of the world. On the rendering side, when we've gone and queried the backend SQL Warehouse or Hadoop or the predictive model, it's time for us to render that. We actually run a headless JavaScript chart experience, chart.js running headless. It's actually running in a Lambda container, which means there's no connected display. The system thinks it's rendering it to a web browser behind the scenes, but what we're doing is we're loading up this headless container containing chart.js. We then pass chart.js, by the way, is a very well-known JavaScript open source library for generating charts. And it's really a simple matter of painting the picture. I want to use a pie chart. Here are my dimensions, here are my measures, and here are the colors I want to use. And the system generates a PNG or a JPEG. And the other interesting thing that needs to happen then is we need to make that available to the bot. And usually the bot requires, depending on the device type, requires a web-accessible PNG URL or JPEG. And so we have to paint that URL, or we have to paint the PNG, create a signed or digitally signed and secured and time-expiring URL. We send it back upstream, and it gets painted by the end device type. And last thing I'll call out is with respect to the machine learning features, we are using a combination of capabilities. One of them has really been really effective at helping us take large amounts of user engagement data and building up deployable web service models. These models can get deployed into code, prediction models if I'm trying to predict what kind of content a particular user might want next. There's a product or there's a company out there, I don't own stock, but I'm really impressed by them. They're called Dataiku. Maybe some of you have used them. They're a data science studio. They integrate with Spark clusters, so if you're a Databricks person here or a Hortonworks person here, you can do your modeling and wrangling in this GUI and then push the model for broad distributed training and inferencing on a back-end cluster. So Dataiku is one of those components of our kit, and we've had a lot of success with it. All right, so lots more to work on. This is a learning exercise for us and our customers, but so far we've been deploying this with great success at some pretty pretty robust customer sites. They love it. They've given us more and more feedback. Some of the things we're working on in our labs, just to give you a heads up, and if there's any opportunity for us to collaborate, please come see us. We are looking at figuring out, cracking that nut that a lot of us are trying to figure out in this space, which is a really robust way to take natural language and map directly to SQL, especially when the data model is potentially very dynamic. It's a hard problem. It's a language, it's almost like a language translation problem. It is, in fact. We are going to be bringing in more and more of the advanced analytics or machine learning into the decision-making process about what cards to present to the client. We talked about pre-caching. That, for example, is very important to smooth out the user experience. Any sort of delay, those of us who use, pick your favorite search engine, Google, Bing, etc., we will not tolerate delays or latency in that user experience. Why would you in this domain? And then finally, our users are asking for us to simplify in an automated way those KPI metrics that are being pulled from the warehouse or from the data lake. So being able to automatically create executive KPIs or headlines, that's a big ask, and it's a big research area for us as well. And with that, not sure how much time we have left, but do we have time for questions? We have 5 minutes. If there's any questions or comments you all have, happy to take them at this point. Yes, sir. So let me see if I can repeat the question for those in the back. A lot of these applications depend on the collection of data, and data that may be wide-ranging and deal with information about people, correct? Is that?
For example, you are collecting data from my personal computer and computer which is public, and I'm using it. They are different, right? So you should analyze it and make decisions. What I need.
I see. Okay, so in the context of a chatbot that's trying to anticipate and personalize the user experience, there are, I want to make clear, we're not advocating for, nor do any of the kits that we're using pull the kind of information that would make you feel uncomfortable. I've already whitelisted my access to a skill. It's typically like downloading an app on your phone. You have to make a decision that I want to be a part of this experience. So the chatbot itself is a registered application in the chatbot or in the application store. It's a skill. I have to whitelist my experience. So once I've done that, there are some basic KPIs and metrics that the device/framework providers give us. There's general session information. There's just very basic information that we could pull from that API. We're not pulling anything above and beyond that. Now, as far as what customers expect us to fuse in with that depends on a case-by-case basis. We have some customers building customer 360 experiences, and so they might be also pulling data from Omniture or from, the equivalent, your web experience, your customer 360 experience. And we'd be able to pull that in as just another data source. Think of this as, Raj, my boss will shoot me for saying this, but this is like BI on steroids. This is really, think about this as another SQL experience, but it's next generation. So we're not advocating for anything above and beyond what would have been brought in anyway, as far as improving that user interaction. No cookies as far as I know. No cookies. Yes. So the question is with respect to using machine learning in this context, there's actually many different applications where machine learning plays a role, and it's not just improving the user flow and the user experience. One example is we support a customer who provides the bot for enabling field reps, field sales reps. And if I'm a sales manager and I'm going and visiting my territory and selling a product, sometimes I want to understand where I should put my energy. If I've got 20 clients to visit this week, what are the most important set of customers for me to visit, and what are the most important things they want to hear? So this becomes sort of like a sales assistant for them. They whip them out of the pocket and they say, you know, based on where I am, I'm going to be seeing a couple customers this week. Where should I put my focus? And the system would come back with a ranked list, it's ranking, and say, these are the most important areas to focus in on, and these have the potential greatest return based on historical trends. Right. This is not just about NLP, which, by the way, 99% of that is taken care of by Google and Amazon. What we're doing is fulfillment and improving the responses. Yeah. I think I have one more. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the question is, when we talk about slots, is there an implication on work that needs to be done to prepare this framework? And the answer is right now, yes. There is a launching point to the project where we have to sit with the business analyst and they tell us what the questions are, the general flow of the categories of questions. And there is that part of setting up the environment and the framework and the slots to be able to receive and respond to these questions and building up the logic behind it. But we are exploring a more dynamic experience where we can take natural language and dynamically generate the SQL and route it to a single master slot that does that routing or does that dynamic dispatch behind the scenes. But that's still a research area for us. One thing I will say, though, is we have tried to make it easier for ourselves and our engineering team by creating a shim tier, which allows us to, in a very scripted and repeatable way, model the questions and mappings and make it independent of the bot framework in question, whether it's Dialogflow or Lex or Alexa Skill Kit or Chatfuel, for example. But guys, or folks, I thank you for your time. I think we're out of time here, but appreciate your attention. Thank you.